Hello, my name is Peggy, and I am a child of the Lord God Almighty. It is a very welcome miracle to me that He has freed me from addiction to alcohol, sex, and a wide variety of other drugs. I have learned from my experiences that all of these, when misused, are drugs to me. It is my privilege to share some of my story with you wonderful people who are in the progress of obtaining your own goals of freedom from hurts, habits, and hang-ups. To those who have heard my prior two testimonies, God has laid it on my heart to be even more transparent and less guarded. So I must be obedient out of my love and gratitude to Him. I will begin with my first encounter with alcohol. I was told that I began to walk at 9 months. It was decided then that I would be taken off the feeding bottle. To accomplish this, beer was placed into my bottle, as was the custom of my era. I can remember very distinctly the way my nose stung when I turned my bottle up in the normal fashion. I threw it across the room in surprise. There was laughter around me, but it seemed to get quieter in just a few seconds, even though I could see the laughter continue. I walked across the floor by the fridge and retrieved my bottle. I turned it up to my mouth slowly. It did not sting this time, but it continued to muffle the sounds around me. I kind of liked that. My house was a very loud and noisy place most of the time. I do not remember much about the rest of that day, but I had a new calm when I woke up the next morning. They soon realized that I liked that stuff better than milk, so they cut down on using it to try to deter me from my bottle. I could walk now, so I began to sneak drinks from glasses and cups, sitting around on the coffee table and end tables. There was always something to drink around, because Daddy drank and so did most of my relatives and the family friends who came over. I noticed that when I could drink, the scary fast talking and the fights did not bother me as much. I could drink and then it would be the next day. When they made me stop, I was very upset, but I could not do anything about it. I was not in control of anything. My home was very dysfunctional, but it seemed normal to me because it was all I knew. I'm not sure when the physical, sexual, and emotional abuse started, but it was worse from ages 5 to 7. The barber lady who lived across the street had a grandson who would stay with her sometime. He was one of my most pain-inflicting sexual molesters. I always wondered why no one came to my aid when I would be screaming in the middle of the street as he hurt me. 1 Peter 5:7 says, "Cast all your anxiety on Him because He cares for you." When I would hear the boy's voice at the front door asking for me, I would run out the back door and then a few houses over and hide. I would move behind other houses when I heard his calling for me get closer. He could not speak in structured sentences because of some type of birth defect. It seemed to me like it took a very long time for him to give up on finding me. But I did not want to play with him and get hurt, so I had to hide for as long as it took. My abusers were both male and female. I did not understand why they treated me like that. Those bad feelings did not stop me from molesting a younger friend one day. Neither of us was in school yet, and the next time she came to play with me, I was told that her mom said if I did that again, she could not play with me anymore. I did not want to lose my friend, so I did not ever do that again to her or anyone else. I remember one day when my main female abuser coerced me to allow a large group of boys at least 3 years older than me to take turns with me. I never told my parents because, like I was told, she would have plenty of opportunities to hurt me even more due to the hours that my parents worked and were away from home. I have to digress to the first time I tried to hurt myself because I'm not sure how old I was, but I believe it was during the time before I started school. I had placed a stick into the ground and was about to impale myself when my mother stepped out the back door just in time to stop me. I figured if I messed myself up, they would leave me alone. Church was my sanctuary. I loved it there. Mama was Methodist, so I was also. I was not old enough to read, so I ushered because we used hand signals, not written instructions. I also walked down the aisle with another child to light the candles in front of the pulpit. I can vaguely remember when I was christened in church by water being sprinkled on my head. The church activities were so much fun. We had lemon squeezes, teas, and all kinds of fun programs. While I was in elementary school here in Austin, I remember the day President Kennedy was assassinated. All the teachers were crying, and that made some of the kids cry out of fear and confusion. We had a picture of him hanging in our living room, along with Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., and a very large picture of two kids and an angel walking across a rickety bridge. I remember this because no other pictures were hung in the house. To avoid some of my abusers, I would walk other kids home after school and then slowly walk to my home. The day that I came into a personal relationship with God was very scary for me. My oldest brother was back from basic training, along with a friend who had joined up with him. We were all in the house, and the two of them jumped Daddy. Mama was trying to stop them, but they did not listen to her. I ran outside in the front crying. I fell to my knees in the dirt and cried out to God. I prayed a long time through tears until I had no more tears to cry. I kept asking God to not let them kill my daddy. I finally sat up and just listened and looked at the doors. I could also see the back door that was on the side of the house from where I was sitting. Front to back, back to front. I just wanted them to come out and the fight to be over. I was saying, God help me, over and over. The screen door flew open as the two boys were racing out the front door with Daddy right behind them. I thank God for saving him. I said, you did hear me, and you do care. I said, I do believe in you, God, because I know you are there. I love you, God. Thank you. Thank you. Matthew 7:7-8 says, ask and it will be given to you. Seeking you will find. Knocking the door will be open to you. For everyone who asks receives. He who seeks finds. And to him who knocks, the door will be open. During Christmas break of my 4th grade school year, Mama had moved us to Little Rock, Arkansas with our daddy. My oldest brother was stationed there in the Air Force. My middle brother was in school there after running away to my oldest sister in Houston when Mama had signed papers for my older brother to enlist. And my oldest sister later sent him to Arkansas. We stayed in the house they had been renting the rest of my 4th grade year. It was there that I really stopped trusting people. I witnessed a terrifying event that I could not believe. I felt completely alone. I was shaken to my core, and I could only ask God what was happening. I felt devastated. My feelings about the event are all that I can share as my story. The summer of 1968, we moved to Brush Island, that is near Jacksonville. Mama rented us 2 rooms in an elderly lady's house. My brother had a room to himself. Mama, my middle sister, and I shared a bed in the lady's 3rd bedroom. I did not like sleeping between them. It did not take Mama long to find us a house with 2 bedrooms and a separate dining room where I would study. I liked the house because there was a fishing pond across the fence. I also got my own bed by the window. Mom and my sister still shared a room with me, but I did not have to sleep with them anymore. I enjoyed my 5th grade school, which was my 3rd elementary school. I was looking forward to the 6th grade. The summer of 1969 was very wonderful. We played in the softball league and made the all-star team. There was a skating rink and walking distance that allowed blacks to skate on Sunday. There was also a liquor store down the street, and we would get the older kids to make our purchases. We had more freedom than we had experienced before my parents' separation. I really miss Daddy, but not the fights, arguments, and tension. He mailed us hair supplies that we could not get in Arkansas, and we wrote each other and talked on the phone. Life was good. Due to certain circumstances and the absence of some, I was not being sexually abused anymore, but I still had random fights with my siblings. School was starting and I was excited. I had made many friends the prior year. The other kids seemed to like me, and even the bully had some respect for me since I had beat him in a class dance contest. To everyone's surprise, we were not going to the same school. The driver made a left instead of a right turn after we went under the train bridge. Most of the kids on the bus began to scream and cry, asking where we were going. I was afraid, but I did not cry. The driver eventually approached the new school. The sidewalks were lined with teachers and some students. All of them were white. The driver told us to get off the bus. The teachers welcomed us, but some of the students were shouting racist slurs. Some of the teachers told him to stop. We were led into the cafeteria and were called by our teachers and told to follow them. There were 4 blacks in my class, with me included. There were 2 boys and 2 girls. Within the first week of school, the boy sitting behind me pulled my ponytail. I did not say anything until he pulled it again even harder. I yelled at the teacher that she had better tell him to leave me alone. I was going to knock the heck out of him. She told him to stop, and he got upset. I was told that he had more right to be there than I did, and I told him to see what was going to happen to him if he pulled my hair again. No one messed with me anymore. By the end of the school year, I was voted the athlete and the artist of the class. Mostly all of the students were getting along as well as could be expected. I'm jumping ahead for a moment to 1980, when I was about to graduate from an executive secretarial school. I was tested for executive secretary and planning to be a legal secretary. But when I arrived at the school, I was told no, I would be trained as a clerk typist. The term was almost over, and my advisor had faxed my resume, and I had received a telephone interview at the school from an investment corporation that wanted to hire me as soon as I graduated. I was told on the phone to come in and get the application out of the way so it would be already on file and I could start when I finished my courses. I was ecstatic. I would be working downtown and could get off welfare and raise my 2 girls, who were now 5 and 2. I had on my Sunday best and stockings. I walked into the office and told the receptionist that I was there to fill out an application for a job that I would be starting when I graduated. I was told there must be a mistake. I conveyed to her the conversation I had on the phone. I was then told that whoever I spoke with had made a mistake because there was no job opening and they were not accepting any applications. I wondered what had happened since the phone conversation. I have experienced many instances like this, and they did have an adverse effect on my emotions and some of my life choices. I am only mentioning these few in obedience to being less guarded about the things that have affected me most in my life. I digressed to lump these events together and get them out of the way. I did make many friends with other races growing up, and today have close friends of a very diverse variety whom I cannot imagine not being in my life. 7th and 8th grades were fun. The racial tension was much less. People seem to be more inquisitive than angry now. Sports had a great deal to do with this, since losing teams were winning now. Mom and Daddy moved us back to Austin during the Christmas break of my 8th grade school term. It was 1971, and urban renewal was buying our house, and we were moving to another neighborhood. I feel like I did not know anyone when school started. It was very strange for a while. I did not understand the kids' slang, but I was smart in classes. School had always been where I shined. I had to make me feel good about myself. I always seemed to have different ideas than my family, so they called me crazy a lot. It was now the summer of 1972, and I would be in high school in a few months. I was looking forward to being in the same school with my middle sister for her senior year. Well, she got married and was moving back to Arkansas. I was introduced to marijuana and to a supplier that summer. I enjoyed school in the 10th grade, and I started to play competition tennis. I would drink wine while doing homework, so I eventually had to get a study hall first period to make sure the work I had done was correct before I turned it in. I only smoked on the weekend at first. Then I would smoke before school with a progression to lunch, break, and more after school. Drinking was not a problem because I could purchase it myself. Due to continual verbal and emotional abuse, I decided that I needed a real love booster. Christmas break of my 11th year in school, I went to Arkansas and got pregnant by my first love. I was not planning to marry or be with him. I just wanted a baby to love and love me forever. I chose him to be the father of my child. That was the first time I was not forced to be with someone. I was 17. I hid it from Mama until I was 3 or 4 months so that abortion would not be an option. I had asked my doctor if I could still play competition tennis and was told to just not overexert myself and we should be fine. I did not let the school know because I wanted to travel and play. I hid my pregnancy for the rest of 11th grade. Mama sent me to Missouri to stay with my oldest brother when summer came. I believe she knew that being pregnant would not stop me from trying to stop Daddy from fighting her. He did not know I was pregnant until Mama left to be with me when my baby was born. The quarter system had been initiated into high school in late 1975. So I missed the first one. I was still in the top 10% of my class when I graduated, but my tennis scholarship was given to someone else since I played pregnant. They tried to take my honor roll course, but the teacher over honor roll would not allow it, but my academic scholarship was withheld. I did not try out for tennis at UT my freshman year. I had heard things about how the older players treated the new ones sexually, and I did not think it right to expect Mama to help me with my choice of having a child just to keep playing competition tennis. She was 52 at the time. The summer before I entered college, I was asked how would I feel if she divorced Daddy. I told her that I did not know why it took her so long to make that decision. I guess she was waiting for me, her youngest, to finish school. The summer of 1977, I met the father of my second and last child. Summers and Christmas seem to have been triggers for me looking back now. Anyway, I got pregnant and we married in September of 1978 after my daughter was born that July. I was still involved in church up until then. I began to stray. I had left college when I was about 3 or 4 months pregnant in the beginning of my sophomore year. I started to try other drugs and drink even more. My marriage was not working. I took a bottle of pain pills, but only became violently ill. They did not stay in my stomach. We ended up separating a number of times. I did not believe he was faithful to me, so I became unfaithful. I started going out all the time. I eventually divorced him after waiting for 7 years. Sleeping around only made me feel worse. Even when I thought I was paid very well. I began to sell drugs. The money was much better, and I had a certain amount of respect from my customers. It also helped me stay supplied for my own use, and I got into all the private rooms in the clubs. Despite my painful experiences with childhood molestation from both genders and rape, I got involved in a few same-sex affairs and encounters. It does not matter about the circumstances. I was and am responsible for my decisions and actions. This went on from late summer to December of 1980. I did give in for the money one time in early 1981. My soul was at war within me. I was very hurtful to the feelings of others. I had never wanted to be with a woman. I had no intentions to return any affections while in those situations. I asked God how I had gotten myself into this. One night, while I was on the breezeway listening to music, I heard God say, "I have better for you, baby." I was living with a woman at the time. 1 Corinthians 10 and 13 says, "No temptation has seized you except what is common to man. But God is faithful. He will not let you be tempted beyond what you can bear. But when you are tempted, he will also provide you a way of escape so that you can stand up under it." Even after I stopped being involved with other women, the deceiver kept reminding me of it. He had me believing that God had no use for me since I had been involved in the sin he calls abominable. I had forgotten that the deceiver is the father of all lies. In January of 1986, my daddy died from a hypertensive heart attack trying to get to the store. Alcoholism is very demanding and very deadly. Thinking that I was behind his decision, my aunt hated me for years. My oldest daughter visited her after I got sober and told her the real story, since my girls were also witnesses to his death. She now loves me and is very proud of my accomplishments. It feels great when she sees me and welcomes me into her presence with open arms. I thought the Serenity Prayer had been stolen from my dad because I had seen him carve it in wood. He was forced into the program of AA by the courts. After his funeral services, when my family members were back at their homes, I sent my girls home with Mama. I told her I just wanted to have some time to myself. I was alone in my apartment, drinking and smoking. I had stopped smoking and using multiple times without success. I had completely given up. I finally got up the nerve to carry out my plan. I had my longest butcher's knife in my hand, and I was about to purposely fall on it and just lay there until I would bleed to death. I was crying and could barely see through my swollen eyes. When just as I was raising from my bed to fall on the knife, I felt pressure in my right side. It felt like someone's fingers were pushing hard to get my attention. I dropped my knife and ran outside in fear. I looked around, then went inside and searched my whole place, then went back outside. It could only have been God. He sent the Holy Spirit to intervene. That was mid-January of 1986, and to this day I have never tried to take my life again. It is not an option. I still smoked and drank, but I was not sleeping around and only occasionally sold drugs. It seemed like my only choice to make money when my girls were young and I wasn't holding a job, especially when they were sick and needed to take medicine. I did dress like I was going to an office job every day, including stockings. Winter of 1988, Mama was not doing well. Chemotherapy was not working anymore. I moved out of my apartment and in with Mama to care for her. That was the hardest and most rewarding thing I had ever done in my life. I let her down so many times before, but I was able to be there when she needed someone the most. I often think about her telling me how she did not know what she would do without me. She had told me that she did not want to go to a nursing home, so I was not about to let that happen. I love her so much and was privileged to take care of her. She passed in June of 1989. My daughters would turn 9 and 12 later that year. They were wonderful helpers. I'm now advancing to 2002, when I was babysitting for my youngest daughter, who is now 24. The TV was on, and I thought the world was coming to an end when I saw those planes hit the buildings in New York. Life was not going well for me, and my relationships with my girls were falling apart. I felt that I had to make a change in my life. January of 2003, I moved to Arkansas, where I had a job waiting for me. 3 months into the job, we were robbed. I was terrified that I would be killed. It was also a stressful situation at my sister's place, where I was living at the time. Everything overwhelmed me, and I returned to Texas. It seemed to me that God was saying that it was in Austin that He wanted to change my life. I heard Him say, "It is okay for you to get some help." I did not like staying with either of my daughters and no longer had a place of my own, so I moved in with a friend who lived off 13th and Chacon. I took the advice of a friend I had met before I had left for Arkansas and went to get help at PES, that is Psychiatric Emergency Services. When I was 18, I had gone to be tested because I had been told most of my life that I was crazy. I tested for hours and was then told that I had to be illiterate to get any help. But I did have some very deep emotional problems. Fortunately, emotional problems were now being taken seriously. I was assigned to a counselor, a nurse, and a psychiatrist. I requested outpatient treatment for alcohol and drugs. I was not sure that I would be able to get clean where I was living. I truly wanted to, though. I never thought of treatment sooner without being afraid to lose my girls. When I started treatment, I was still smoking marijuana, but I had my last drink on July the 19th of 2003. One night I had to face my situation. I prayed to God. I said that if He wants me to get clean right here in the middle of Drug Central, I surrender. I do not want to live like this anymore, and I know that You will not allow me to check out. I have to have Your power, God, to stop, because I could not do it on my own strength or will. That was September the 10th and the last night I smoked. Thank You, God. He had stopped my drinking July the 19th and sex in late August. I did not talk much at treatment because I was there to learn why I acted like I did. I worked my steps, did my amends, and got counseling regularly. I was on the right track, but I still felt useless to God because I had been with other women knowing it was against His will. September 21st, 2003, I was walking to my regular church, and it started to rain hard. I knew that I would be soaked by the time I made it down the hill, so I turned and came inside GMZ. I found a seat in the balcony to hide, but I wanted the word. A lady stood at the podium and began to tell her testimony. Tears rolled down my face as I heard about her life. I was overwhelmed with the depth of God's love, grace, and forgiveness. I felt hope and the belief that God cleansed me when Jesus shed His blood on the cross. I thanked God and cried some more. When the doors of the church were opened, I walked to the pulpit and shook Pastor's hand. Sister Sweat led me into the office and began to talk to me. I told her that I wanted to rededicate my life to God. I shared that I was in treatment and was 2 weeks clean and sober. I felt loved and wanted, and I knew that God had forgiven me, and the devil could not throw anything in my face or make me feel damned again. I had wasted 24 years allowing the deceiver to hold me back from walking in God's forgiveness. All those years I was loved, but not accepting it. I thank God for my life now. On my graduation day, I shared the message in Matthew 25 of the 10 virgins waiting for the bridegroom. It is one of the most moving parables in the Bible to me. I plan to have enough oil to keep my lamp lit so that I can be ready when he comes. Hallelujah. Newcomers. Early recovery was not easy for me. I was living in the middle of Drug Central, but that is just where God wanted to use me. It was amazing to be a part of his plan to show others that it is possible to get clean when alcohol and drugs are all around you. I just had to surrender my habits to him and use his strength to say no. Now I do not want any drugs or alcohol. I had to stay focused on God, and he carried me through withdrawals, financial difficulties, and 3 years, 3 months, and 11 days of homelessness without allowing me to sleep outside one time. Over the last almost 11 years, he has blessed me with 3 different places of my own, steady income, and a wonderful church family, CR, and 3 different vehicles. He supplies needs and some wants. Newcomers, I ran from CR at first because I was involved in about 9 different ministries already. I have been truly blessed through CR. It is a safe and wonderful place to grow in sobriety and to share any hurt habit or hang-up with others who want to overcome through God's help and strength. I was voluntold into service right away by Pastor Patton. It was a great privilege to co-lead the first women's step study with LaQuisa. We all grew as we shared with each other, and new leaders were nurtured. I love CR's healing possibilities. I can't pick out just 1 or 2 steps or principles because it takes all of them to complete the healing process. Pastor Patton encouraged me to also continue with my other recovery groups. For me, it took many healthy spiritual events and ministries to replace the time I spent using and drinking and all the other unhealthy, non-spiritually rewarding things I was involved in. The last things I need to say to newcomers and anyone struggling: welcome to the best place to be, to learn the best way to live a rewarding life. Get into a step study group. Learn how God will empower you to serve others as you gain your freedom from your hurts, habits, and hang-ups. I thank God for the life I live now. Galatians 2:20 says, I have been crucified with Christ, and I no longer live, but Christ lives in me. The life I live in the body, I live by faith in the Son of God who loved me and gave himself for me. Thank you all for allowing me to share a few portions of my story and how God has brought out the real me. And he will do the same for you if you just surrender to his will.